everyone, and today we're back for another Loomian Legacy video. And in this video, I'm going to be teaching you on how to solo all of the Nightmare raids. So, yesterday, they released a brand new update that can make you do Gardrone raids. And I'm going to be showing you on how to solo all 3 of the Nightmare variants. So, let's head straight into the video. Alright. Let's start with the Fire Raid. With the Flame Core, Gardrone becomes a Metal Fire type, meaning that it has Fire type moves. The moves that Gardrone will be having is Flare Blast, Raging Flame, Shard Storm, and Elemental Burst. And Flare Blast and Raging Flame are actually the big threats here, because Raging Flame can actually burn melee attackers. So that's why the first Loomian I am using on this team is Aklos. Aklos has the Aqua Body ability, which makes it immune to being burned, and it has Wave Wrecker, which can hit Gardrone for super effective damage. The reason why we want to use melee attackers on Gardrone is because Gardrone actually has a really high range defense stat, so even super effective hits on the range side can never really KO health bars from Gardrone. The other moves I have is Aqua Jaws. Aqua Jaws will lower melee defense, and that is so if it gets any defense increases, you could lower its melee defense almost immediately. Soft Water is here to heal. You will click Soft Water turn 1, so your Aklos can heal a lot of HP back, and your final move is Brawn Boost, so you can set up really quickly. Now, the TPs are 200 in the melee attack to hit as hard as possible, 200 in the range defense to live as many hits as possible, and 96 in the health. While Aklos does resist fire with the Aqua Body ability, it is neutral to Shard Storm and Elemental Burst. But since Aklos has very good bulk, even if it has a setup, it should be able to live a +2 Shard Storm, which is really good for a Loomian like Aklos. And you just try to KO as many health bars as you can. But for the second Loomian we're going to be talking about is going to be Plasmoth. Plasmoth is range defensive and has Thunderstrike, Energize, Square 1, and Rejuvenate, and the ability is recurrent, so your electric type attacks can deal more damage. Plasmoth is very good here because even though it is neutral to Flare Blast, it just has a very high range defense stat, and it has Energize. And it has the special little move Square 1. So if Gardrone gets any buffs, you can get rid of its buffs immediately with Square 1. And then you can set up Energizes yourself, and you can pretty much take the slow route to the victory. And it's even better because it is weak to electric type attacks, unlike the electric Gardrone, which isn't. Now, the TPs are 200 in their health, 200 in the range defense, and 92 in the range attack, so you can hit as hard as possible while also being as bulky as possible. Now, I am running the Mysterious Dust because the Flare Blast burns can do damage over time, and it could definitely mess with Plasmoth. The third Loomian I have on this team is Malevolence. Now, Malevolence is weak to Elemental Burst, which is something to keep in mind. But something I've noticed with the Gardrone AI is that it never usually clicks Elemental Burst. It clicks it only like 1 time out of 8. And I think the reason why is because the AI is known to use its stab moves. It knows that its stab moves actually deal more damage. So it's actually clicking Shard Storm and Flare Blast more. Not to mention that I have Scapegoat on this Malevolence, meaning that I can actually block Raging Flame, meaning anytime it clicks Raging Flame, Malevolence has a free turn to set up Peace of Mind. This Loomian also has Square 1, and it has Fire Breath. Fire Breath doesn't hit it for super effective damage, but it does enough damage that +6 that I can usually 2-shot it. I have 200 in the range attack and 200 in the range defense with 96 in the HP, but you could reduce some of its HP. Nah, I guess you could reduce its range attack and put it in the energy to put it at 240. And the item I have is Health Amulet, so you can heal as much HP back as possible. And with these 3 Loomians, you should be able to beat the Fire Raid every single time, because Plasmoth can pretty much solo it after 5,000 years, and Malevolence can even solo it if you get lucky from the Elemental Burst. And Aklos can speed up the process while dealing a ton of damage early. And that's how you beat the Fire Raid. Not too bad. Let's head to the Ice Raid. Now we're heading to the Ice Raid. So, during the Ice Raid, Gardrone becomes a Metal and Ice type, meaning it has 2 critical quad weaknesses, both to Brawler and to Fire. We're going to take advantage of this with our first Loomian that we're going to lead every single time, with Wrestlin. Wrestlin has Pep Jab, which can pretty much OHKO a health bar from the Ice-type Gardrone. And out of the Gardrones, I think the Ice-type Gardrone is the easiest, because Wrestlin can pretty much just solo a game all by itself. The TPs is 200 in the melee attack, 200 in the range defense, 80 in HP, and 40 in the energy. And it has the other coverage moves if you need it. And I have Brawny Specialty Gloves, but Very Brawny is more recommended. Now, the reason why we didn't use Wrestlin into the Fire-type Gardrone is because that has Raging Flame, which cuts Wrestlin's attack in half, meaning it does less damage. But it can be used if you get lucky from it not clicking Raging Flame. So the only way you could get burned from the Ice-type Gardrone is from Elemental Burst, which doesn't happen too much. So Wrestling by itself can pretty much solo the raids. But if Wrestling can't solo the raids, you have Serenite. Serenite pretty much lives any hit from the Ice-type, and even though it doesn't have a high range defense stat, with the Health Amulet item, it stays alive, and the only consistent damage it takes is from Bitter Cold, which doesn't even have Serenite's attack. I have very robust on the Serenite, so I can hit as hard as possible with Body Crash, Boiling Press, Burrow, and Redemptive Strike. Redemptive Strike doesn't do much damage, but it gives you a free turn, and with the Terrifying ability, it makes it so Gardrone can use one of its health bar buffs to get rid of a stat nerf, which is huge, meaning that there's less of a chance of Gardrone getting a stat buff. TP's 200 in the melee defense, 108 in the range defense, and 192 in the health, puts it at 193, which gives you Health Amulet ticks. Now, the last Loomian you have on this team is Malevolwax. The reason why I have Malevolwax on this team instead of Plasmoth is because Plasmoth is weak to ice. And it's always good to have at least one Square 1 Loomian. And this is the same Malevolwax set from before, 200 in the range attack, 200 in the range defense, 96 in the health, the same Malevolwax set we talked about in the Fire-type segment. And it's even better in this one because the Ice-type attacks really do not do as much. And not to mention that Scapegoat can block Bitter Cold, which is something you do got to be careful about. You definitely want to Scapegoat because it can Bitter Cold you and it can lessen your damage in half. But again, it's not going to click Elemental Burst too much because again, I don't know why, but it just doesn't click it. It clicks its stab moves a lot more than its coverage moves. So usually Malevolwax has a lot of chances to click Peace of Mind and hopefully Square 1 a stat buff. And with this, you can pretty much win the Ice Raid every single time. Honestly, with just Wrestling, you can pretty much solo the Ice Gardrone raid every single time. This thing can pretty much carry games by itself because it hits so hard and it can pretty much chunk a health bar even after a melee defense increase, which is actually kind of insane. So yeah, the Ice-type Gardrone raid is definitely the easiest one. Let's head to the Electric one. Now for the Electric Gardrone, it has the Metal and Electric type, which is the same defensive typing as Hunder. So, the three Loomians I wanted to use for this one is Wrestling is my lead yet again. Because Wrestling is probably the best lead for all of the Gardrone raids besides Fire. The moves that the Electric Gardrone can run are Thunder Blast, Stun, Shard Storm, and Elemental Burst. So, this Gardrone can probably take out Wrestling the quickest out of the three. But still, you can deal a lot of damage with Pep Jab. And if you have a lead with a melee defensing dropping teammate, it can actually OHKO an entire health bar with Pep Jab, which is nice. But it doesn't do quite as good as it does with the Ice variant. This is the same Wrestling that I used before. It hits very hard, same TPs, same abilities, same personalities, even though it should be very brawny. And honestly, Plasmoth and Malevolwax can solo the Electric raids all by themselves. Plasmoth is great because even though it can't hit the Electric Gardrone for super effective damage, it can still Square 1 it. It doesn't take too much damage itself, and after some energizes, it just never ever dies, even to critical hits. And the recurrent ability can actually make its Thunder Strikes deal consistent damage over time because Gardrone is only neutral to Thunder Strike and not weak to it. It might take 700 years for the Plasmoth to KO the Gardrone, but it's just so consistent that you should never leave it behind in any battle. Same with Malevolwax. Just like I said before, Malevolwax is actually useful in all three of the Gardrones, even though they all have Elemental Burst. You just gotta play smart because you gotta set up Scapegoats, you gotta set up Peace of Minds, and just having the ability to stop stat boosting with Square 1 and hitting the Electric type Gardrone with Fire Breath is really nice, because after a +3, after 3 Peace of Minds, you can 2-shot all of the Gardrone's health bars, which is really nice, after you get a Square 1. Again, this Malevolwax set is the same as I talked about earlier, and it probably has its best matchup in this one. So, because Stun is just not really good. You're not as afraid as getting stunned compared to Bitter Cold, because Bitter Cold does lower your ranged attack, but Stun really only stops your energy, which doesn't come into play that much. Although it does make you slower than the Gardrone, so that is something to take into consideration. But even then, Scapegoat is always useful, and Square 1 is always useful. I even got unlucky in this raid with Wrestling getting burned from an Elemental Burst, and I was just able to solo the rest of the raid with Malevolwax. That just shows how good Plasmoth and Malevolwax are for both the Fire and the Electric raids. And for the Ice-type raids, Malevolwax and Wrestling could solo, which is kind of insane. And keep in mind, I was doing this raids with NPCs. I didn't even use these raids with another person, and I was able to win all 3 of them very easily without any help. So if you have all of these Loomians, if you have Wrestling Plasma from Wax for honestly all 3 of the raids, you should be able to win those raids pretty much 95% of the time. So yeah, that's how you can defeat all of the expert raids or nightmare raids. Hope you guys found this video useful. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys get some good drops from the Gardrone raids. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!